So the NCAA tournament is underway. This always leads to a discussion, really an argument amongst college football fans. At first it was all about adding a playoff/tournament system into college football. But now that that ship has sailed, it's all about expanding said playoff system to include more teams. Now tons of fans, some players, and even some coaches are on the record saying that they want to see the college football playoff be expanded. Other fans, analysts, and experts are on the record saying they don't want to see it expand. They say that it either won't work or that it won't solve anything. This topic got me to thinking about the differences between the FBS and the FCS subdivision, and in particular their postseason system. Now the FCS, which stands for Football Championship Subdivision, which used to be called D1AA, currently runs a 24-team playoff at the end of the season. This works exactly like the March Madness tournament that's going on right now, and it gives an opportunity for more teams to actually get to that final championship game. The FCS includes teams like McNeese State, James Madison, and the school I actually attended and played football at, Southern University. So in today's video, we're going to discuss the differences between the FCS and the FBS, with an emphasis on their postseason systems, and of course I'm going to wrap it all up in a story format because that's what we do on this channel. Now if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the thumbs up button, subscribe if you're brand new, and without further ado, let's get it. Alright, before we jump into the video, I gotta give a quick shout out to one of the main sponsors on the FlemLo Raps channel, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that gives you access to tons of tickets from across the internet, and their goal is basically to make your ticket buying experience as simple as possible. They put all the tickets in the same place, rate each ticket on the scale from 1 to 100, allow you to preview the view of the seat that you're getting. That way, in as quick a manner as possible, you can get all the information you need in order to make an informed purchase. Now if you want to download the SeatGeek app, all you gotta do, click the link in the description. Oh, and yeah, use my code FlemLo for $20 off your first purchase. There you go. So I grew up around FCS football. I literally lived about a mile right down the street from Alcorn State University's campus. Now, Alcorn is an FCS school in the Southwest Athletic Conference, and they've won a few recent SWAC championships, 2014 and 2015. They also have over 50 alumni who've played in the NFL, including the late great Steve McNair, who was co-MVP with Peyton Manning at one point, and legendary Packers receiver Donald Driver. Now when I was a kid, nobody in my small town seemed to care anything about FBS college football. It was all Alcorn State versus Jackson, Southern versus Grambling, you know, battle of the bands, the whole nine. An entirely different experience from most FBS schools. When I was about second grade or so, my teacher had a Steve Air McNair poster on her desk, and to me, Air McNair and Air Jordan felt like they was on the same level, and that's not even an exaggeration. Now you have to understand, this is pre-internet, not necessarily before the internet existed, but well before it existed in the way that it does today. There were no cell phones that I can Google stuff on at random, so the only thing I had to draw these conclusions from were what I saw when I went outside my house. And at that point, I hadn't traveled far beyond my own small town. All I saw was Air McNair bumper stickers, t-shirts. It was crazy. Not to mention, he finished third in the Heisman voting and was the third overall pick in the '95 draft. So as a 7-year-old kid, Alcorn State and the rest of the FCS schools were major college football to me. Now I didn't really get into FBS college football until later in life. I came in during the BCS era, and if you can imagine coming in as an outsider, it was pretty damn confusing. I didn't understand what was so important about these ball games. I grew up always thinking it was championship or bust. Now don't get me wrong, Because I played the sport, I learned about all route combinations, how to read coverages, etc. I just didn't understand the culture of FBS college football. But as I learned more about that culture, I began to understand why people are so closely attached to it. The traditions were so deep. It was actually very much like the college football I knew on the FCS level, where FBS schools were crazy over bowl games. We were crazy over classics like the Capital City Classic or the Bayou Classic. And while I know there were some outliers, like my boy Denzel, who was randomly a Miami fan, for most people, which league you were a fan of simply depended on where you grew up and who you had ties to. Now, the first bowl game was in 1902 at the Tournament of Roses in Pasadena. They would usually watch ultra entertaining events like dudes trying to catch a greased pig. But remember that next time you complain about the Pro Bowl. Things could be worse. Much worse. Anyway, this year they decided to get powerhouse college football teams from the East and the West and bring them together for some good old-fashioned football. Now, Michigan that year had outscored their opponents 501-0, bro. That's 501 points to 0. But now they were facing Stanford and things were about to change. Or so they thought. Things didn't change at all. Stanford got 49 zipped in front of 8,000 people, and their coach had the axe to stop the game early because his team was so outclassed. Anyway, it was so bad that for the next 14 years, they didn't play football at the festival. They went back to stimulating activities like ostrich racing. So you mean to tell me the game was so not entertaining that they'd rather watch ostrich racing? I'm not making this up. This is what they was doing, bro. In 1916, they tried it again, and it did better. So by 1923, they'd moved it into this new stadium they had built. It was called the, the Rose Bowl. They played on New Year's Day, and they just called the game the name of the stadium. So USC beat Penn State 14-3. Now, during the next decade, other places started having bowl games of their own, all on New Year's Day as a way to get tourists to their cities to make money off them. Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Sun Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So by 1937, there were 6 bowl games, and the NCAA stated, here's what they said, bro. You're not going to believe this. They came out and said that postseason bowls have no place in college football because they serve no sound educational ends, and such promotions merely trade upon intercollegiate football for commercial purposes. Word? For the record, that hasn't changed at all, but the NCAA is now cool with it for some reason. Who we kidding, man? They're printing money at this point. Now that money printer began really taking shape in the 80s when bowl games started getting corporate sponsorships. Sunkist Fiesta Bowl, FedEx Orange Bowl, hell, the Outback Bowl. You know what I'm saying? They just named the whole bowl the Outback Bowl straight out. And most fans were happy with this. But the issue was, people wanted a true champion. Who's the best? Cut the crap. So in 1998, College Football incorporated the Bowl Championship Series, aka the BCS. Now, the BCS was designed to give you 5 bowl game matchups involving 10 of the top ranked teams in the FBS, including an opportunity for the top 2 teams to compete in the BCS National Championship game. It relied on a combination of polls and computer selection methods to determine relative team rankings. All right, this system stayed in place from 1998 through 2013 when they got rid of it, opting to adopt the current 14 playoff system. But like the BCS, the current postseason method still causes tons of controversy pretty much every year. Fans hardly ever agree on who gets in and who doesn't. And what it creates is a lot of people feeling that college football isn't an actual meritocracy, unlike pretty much every other major sport. But being unlike every other sport has made college football must-see TV, and it gives the sport undoubtedly the most entertaining and important regular season. So while I personally would love to see the playoff expanded, I do understand those who use the old adage in this situation: if it ain't broke. Now, the FCS didn't start up till relatively recently. We're talking 1978. The thing is, the FCS was literally born with a 14 playoff. over 30 years before the FBS would adopt it. But by the time the FBS took that step, the FCS had moved on. Within 3 years of its conception, the FCS started to expand its playoff to allow more teams to join, going up to an 8-team playoff and then a 12-team playoff, with each of the top 4 teams getting a bye and a home game in the quarterfinals. By 1986, they'd moved on to 16 teams. So at that point, you had to win 4 postseason games without losing, of course, in order to become the one true champion. Now, when 2014 rolled around, the FBS fans celebrated their first ever 14 playoff. Most FBS fans had no idea that the year before, the FCS had expanded to a 24-team playoff system, with winners of 11 conferences getting automatic bids. Here's the part that sucks a little. Due to all the expansion, the playoff that used to start in December now began in November, and the championship game was in January. Byproduct, they had to shorten the regular season by a game or 2. So as you can see, it's not perfect. So here's my question. Which of these 2 systems do you prefer? Personally, I, and probably the majority of people watching this video, would love to see major college football meet us somewhere in the middle with 8 teams or so. I personally think 24 is a bit excessive, although I'm very curious to see what y'all think in the comments section. It seems like with 8, you just go with the winners of each of the Power 5 conferences, which re-emphasizes the conference championship that so many people complain doesn't mean anything anymore. And then the committee can put in the best 3 non-conference championship teams according to their ever-changing criteria to fill out the rest of the 3 spots. This really opens up the opportunity for at least one mid-major program to get in, along with a team or 2 that was really good but didn't quite win their conference. And of course, some people say that if that mid-major team gets in, they'll get destroyed. And maybe they will. But do they not deserve the opportunity? Because you never know what can happen once the game actually starts.